start those kinds of things. So, Chris, do you have a date for Valentine's?
We're on. Hello. We were just talking about the upcoming Valentine's Day. Got any sweet plans, Miss Mendez?
With my dogs.
With your dog. Well, at Spark, we got a ton of stuff going on, right? Love, 1 + 1 equals infinity when you get the right match. So, welcome to Call to the Principal's Table. What have we got going on today?
We have a lot of math information coming to the table today.
Interesting. And somebody just dinged me. Someone from the office. Okay. Just checked with Miss Rosalie. It's a 2-person job. All right, thanks for letting me know at the office, whatever that means. Okay, I do see a lot of stuff out here, and I also see that our Peace Project box is here. So, we haven't had that to the table. Liam isn't here, but let's see what we got in the Peace Project problem box. This comes from Bad at Math, one of our 3rd graders. How do you feel about the problem? Really stressed. Please tell me what your problem is. Math. I can't do it. My mom says it's because I have a math learning disability. So why do I need to keep doing math? It's torture. Wow. Bad at math. That's a big question. Why do we have to keep doing math? Were you a good at math or a bad at math kind of person?
I think it depends on the topic of math.
Ah, that's actually great. Most people kind of divide themselves into this category. And what you're talking about, bad at math, is the feeling of anxiety that accompanies math.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start to develop the sense that I am not good at this subject, it shuts you down.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you approach math, it's like your mind is blank and you don't have access to your working memory.
Right.
And our working memory is basically that part of the brain. It's kind of like my notepad where we have all the notes about how things are done. And then when you apply it, you figure things out. But if you don't have access to that because you're anxious, then math does become torturous.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know for us, we've been working very hard to take the anxiety out of math and to change our mindset around it. There is no such thing as someone being good at math or bad at math. It is about growing with it because math is problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many ways to solve a problem, right? It doesn't just take
It's
one.
like a puzzle.
Yes, it is. It's very much like that. And there's more than one way to get any of the answers. And that's in itself why you need to keep doing math. Bad at math? You're not bad. You've got to keep doing it so your brain begins to deal with that feeling of finding the way through to coming up with a solution, allowing things to add up, understanding how to do that. And I think it applies to life straight across the board. So, okay, so who's coming to the table? Who's waiting to come in?
I'm Hayden, one of our 5th graders.
Oh,
with
what?
Miss D.
Ah, Miss D is our math teacher. Yes. All right, bring them on, Hayden and Miss D.
For you.
Okay. So Hayden, called to the table once again. Pull yourself a little closer to Miss D so we can see you. So here we've got your red folder. And this is usually the work that you do during reading lab, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I see here that you have a lot of undone math worksheets. How many to be exact?
Well, I had 18.
18 undone. By the way, 18 is one of my favorite numbers because it's the number of life. L'chaim, I think it's called in right in Hebrew.
I think you're
The
right.
number of life. It was also the number of my son's soccer jersey, 18. So you had 18 undone, a magical life
Yes.
number. So that means those 18 undone worksheets should teach you some form of life lesson because it's connected to life. So tell me, what's going on here, Miss D, with Hayden and his 18 undone worksheets?
Well, it's really for Hayden to talk about because I mean, I put those sheets in there and most of the kids finish them in a timely manner, and with Hayden it takes a little bit longer.
What goes on for you, Hayden? Do you avoid? Do you think you're bad at math like this?
Bad, no. Good, no.
Somewhere in the middle?
Yeah.
And so, what was going on with getting these sheets done?
Well, at first it was a little just. At first I would get them, but I would get them wrong because I would be rushing.
You wanted to just get them done.
Yeah.
Get to the end of the worksheet. That's a big problem with worksheets. It does feel like you just want to get them done, right? And then what happened?
And then it was like I had to do Wilson and then reading, so I had a good amount of time. And then I'm one of those, if I'm not talking and I'm like focused, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if like one person like even whispers something to me, I lose focus on everything.
So and especially if you're sort of like, about math,
Yeah,
right?
that doesn't help either.
Yeah, you're going to get distracted from it. So how did you start making up these 18 worksheets? Because we can't just throw them in the garbage and say, it's okay, don't do them, Hayden.
I had Miss Alfaro, the teacher, work with me for this week, and I got done. Now I only have about 4.
What was the difference working with a teacher to help you get them done, to have Miss Alfaro's assistant? How did that help you?
It was because I knew the answers, I just didn't know steps.
And did it feel like you were able to talk it through with her?
Uh-huh.
And that was helpful.
Yeah.
And you're almost caught up. How many do you have left?
4, I think.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the same question that I started with, 18. Like, what have you learned from this? Not leaving them, not getting them done, and then getting them done this week with help.
Well, I learned to manage more. Definitely. That's it, I believe.
And what kind of management? What helps you get them done? Think about what you just told me.
Time management.
Well, you kind of had the time. You were just getting distracted.
Yeah.
What actually helped you to get them done?
Someone just to keep me there focused.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That is a fair thing to know about yourself. In a subject matter that you don't feel really confident about, you're not that interested in, you need someone to keep you on track.
Yes.
And if you know that about yourself, then that's a great first step because you can ask for that kind of assistance. Because next time you get distracted, I want you to be able to say, can someone help me out here?
Yeah.
Keep me on track. That's taking responsibility. Do you have a favorite number?
123.
1, 2, 3. Why?
That's why it's my favorite number, 1, 2, 3.
Because it's 1, 2, 3. It kind of lines up for you. I like that. Miss Mendez, do you have a favorite number?
I do.
What?
27.
Why 27?
I was born on the 27th of October. And I'm 27, so I've been looking forward to my golden year for so
This
long.
year is your
and I'm having
27
such
on
a
the
good year.
27.
So it is my golden year.
When is it?
Right now, I'm in the mists
Of the
of my
27th
27th year.
Phenomenal. How about you, Misty?
I have 2, 7 and 17, because I was born July 17th.
Oh, you
at,
were
like
7/17.
7:27 in the
This girl is
morning.
the jackpot. 777.
Yeah.
I bet on her. You are the
I'm pretty good
winner.
at that too.
Are you good?
Yeah, surprisingly.
So Misty she started out as our second grade teacher, And then this year with Spark, we went departmental. So each of our teachers took on a subject matter that they loved the most. And you took on math
Yes.
from 2nd to 5th grade.
Mhm.
How are you finding that?
I really love it. I really enjoy it. I think that as a teacher, it's so much easier to focus on one subject throughout the whole entire day. Your mind's kind of there. I always just loved math anyway, so.
I also love the way you kind of broke down the week, right? It's not
Yeah.
out of the textbooks every day. Is it, Hayden? How is math? Well, how does it go?
Well, it's kind of, it really depends on the week. So, like, I know we did a couple days ago, we just did worksheets, and then the next day we didn't write at all. We just did it on the board. The day after that, we made our, like, recently we made our own problems where we had to bring our parents.
So you created
So we
your own
created our
problems? That's great.
So it's really different every day.
Nice. And so how do you think about kind of the arc of the week with your students?
Well, if you think about kids in general, how they it is an arc where they go up in their interest, in their engagement throughout the week, and then slowly it declines. That's kind of how it's set up. The first 3 days is strictly lessons where they sit, they learn. Like he said, sometimes they write it down in their notebook, sometimes I just do it on the board and they have to focus. And then you'll get like 1 or 2 problems that you have to complete after the lesson. And then Thursday is our problem solving day, so we dedicate half the time to problem solving, word problems mostly. Now we're doing a problem solving project based off of a movie theater. And then the second half of that day is our Reflex, which is an online program where they practice their fact fluency, because that's such a
Do you like that?
important part of he says
Sort of.
sometimes. And then Friday is, I call it guided math groups and games. So all the kids get to play math games just to reinforce the skills they've already learned, and then I pull specific kids to the back to work with them on if they got a lot of problems wrong in their reading lab folder work, or if I realize they're struggling from an assessment or things like that. So I get a chance to actually work one-on-one to try to help them with where they're lacking.
Do you feel like the problem solving piece, because you do dedicate a day to that every day, every week, do you feel like the skills for problem solving in math translate to life?
Absolutely.
Yeah, tell
One
us.
of the main reasons I decided to have a problem solving day is because I think my generation is just really bad at problem solving. Like, I have friends who can't figure out how to do things on their own in life, like get something that's stuck behind a drawer or things like that. And I know that you have to really look into the word problem in front of you when you're doing it math related, but then also just in life, you have to look behind the actual problem and see the different aspects that you could reach towards to succeed, you know?
Right, to break it down and
Yeah.
figure out what strategies to take
Right.
on. And one of the things that I love is, like, we're really trying to incorporate everyday math into the math curriculum, but into school in general, because math is alive everywhere. Like, you also run the entrepreneurship
Yes.
Spark.
Yes.
Hayden, you work the money, right? Are you the money guy?
I'm the manager of
Of the
Yes.
finance. So that is so mathematical. So your math brain works for money, but not for worksheets.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely money motivated.
He is money motivated.
Yeah.
And you will learn a lot about adding up and division and problem solving, just working with money.
Yesterday I actually had to. Not yesterday, the day before yesterday, once I had to. That was our first time back.
The school store was open.
Yeah, he
Yes.
was the cashier.
So you were dealing with all the money there.
Of course, that day the cash register wasn't working.
Oh, so you
So
had to
I
make
had to-
change.
Yep.
Mental math right there on the
Mhm.
spot. So math is such a big piece of life and learning. how about, the kid who says, math stresses me out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know Miss Rosalie, who's our curriculum director, she said, because she works with you in the planning, she said, you know what? I feel like the kids in general this year, their math anxiety has dropped so much.
Mm-hmm.
And she attributed it to, like, your ease at which you present it,
Mhm.
like it doesn't stress you out at
Yeah.
all.
Right.
What would you say?
Yeah, well, I agree that the anxiety really isn't there anymore. Like, a little bit towards the beginning of the year we had it, but now I don't see anybody really being anxious about it. I think part of it is that I know, like, I'm very good at math, so I know a lot about it. So when I'm teaching it to the kids, I'm like, yeah, this is what we do. It's just this. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And it makes them feel, oh, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that hard. I get it. But also, I teach a lot of different methods. I don't know if you remember this, but the other day, you said, we were going over homework, and I had taught how to solve the problem 3 different ways.
Yes.
And it was a time problem. And you raised your hand and you said, no offense, Mystique, but the way you just explained that was so confusing, and I don't think you should have done that. But I understood the first way you explained it. And I explained that everybody's mind works differently,
Yes.
and there are different methods solving problems because some people are going to understand the third one and not the first one. And then another student raised his hand and said, actually, you're right. I understood the third time you did it, but I didn't understand any of the other times you did it.
And that is such a respect for the different ways we process. And I remember once, my daughter, when she was in 5th grade, was just having a fit about how to solve this problem. And her teacher said to her, there's more than one way to get to Pathmark. Those were his words exactly. You can take the long way, you can take the short way, there's more than one way. Find your way.
Mm-hmm.
Find your way. And that's what you're talking about. The
Yeah.
way that comes most naturally to you. And kids don't know that unless you actually can present, oh, there are more than one way. Because I think a lot of times we're taught there is one way and that's the best way and just
Right.
do it. But that was actually like such a beautiful example of more
Yeah.
than one way. And, when we were talking about the show this week, one of our science teacher this year, who was our 3rd grade teacher last year, and Miss L is like a brilliant science teacher, she said math was always something she had so much anxiety about, still to this day. And she said, I know that when I was a classroom teacher and teaching math, my students took some of that with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it really kind of rang true for me that as teachers in elementary school, we have to be aware of the subjects that come easy and we're in the flow with,
Yeah.
and those that, this is not much
That's
for me.
history.
History
Not
for
good
you.
at social studies.
No, but you got the
But I have
math down.
mind.
So I do want to bring out another 5th grader, Maddie. Maddie, come to the table because of something we developed with her last year. So last year, Maddie, do you remember this? You were in math class with Miss Scala, and she called me and said, Maddie is just crying because this math is so frustrating to her. Do you remember that? And when I went into the room, you said, I just can't take this because I don't know how to get to the answer. And so we started to talk to the class about math actually being a journey. And we came up with our math heroes. Yes, this is from you, Maddie. Let's get the little stand for it because I do love it so much. Maddie, do you have a favorite number? We're all finding out our favorite numbers.
I don't know. I have a few favorite numbers.
Wait, I don't want to block you. Maddie is blocked by her board. I'll put it over here. So what are your few favorite numbers?
10, 20, and 30.
So you like the 0. You like multiples of 10. So here we have it. We learn a lot in literature about the hero's journey, right? Every good story is like a hero's journey. And what happens with the hero's journey is the hero is called into some unknown territory. So if you think about a math problem, you start out, it's just a problem. You don't know what it's going to be. So you start out by preparing, getting your paper ready, your materials, your good mindset. I'm going to be able to do it. And then you have to cross into the unknown, the problem solving. And in the problem solving, it's like a road of trials, trial and error. You try, it works. You try, it doesn't work. You try, you get frustrated. You may need a guide
Yes.
to come in and help you and say, let me sit with you. That's part of a journey. And then eventually you come up with something. Finally, I got the answer. But then it's not over yet, because now, in order to return, you have to check your work. You have to look over the little details of it. You have to really get it. And then once you really get it, you actually become ready to teach it. You should be able to show it. Today, Miss D, you had your second graders doing what?
Teaching the pre-K
Great.
how to do their addition.
So the second graders had finally gotten it, and now they were passing it on to the pre-Ks. And so if we look at math as a journey, then it allows us to understand that this process is going to be frustrating, stressful, and if you get through it, every time you get through it, as far as we're concerned, you're a hero.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling about math this year?
It's hard, but it's getting easier.
So what part is getting easier? Is it your attitude?
It's my attitude.
It's your attitude. So
And
how?
also, Miss D has been, my mom set me up with Miss D for tutoring.
So you too having the one-on-one helps.
Uh-huh.
So how does it change your mindset? How has your mindset changed?
So basically, it just like is quiet. I like having a quiet room to do my math in because it's the hardest subject for me.
I find that with Maddie, it really helps her with blocking out all the other noise, or else she gets very distracted. So she actually wears her headphones a lot of the time and listens to music while she does her math, and she does really well with it.
And that actually is just like you're getting to know that you can get really distracted and sometimes need a guide. You know that for a subject like math,
I
You-
needed to be quiet.
this is important stuff to know for your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's knowing what works for you, because math isn't just solving the problem, it's the preparation that we were just talking about. How do you prepare yourself to really solve this unknown equation? You know what, I want to show you something on here since you're writing on it. One of the things, one of my favorite symbols in math, you know because it's my dragonfly wings, is the infinity sign, right?
If you put two of them together, it makes you
The
could make
dragonfly, right? The wings.
You know how to draw that.
I do. So, they say that if you're feeling stressed, it does not even have to be about math, about any subject, about writing. If you trace the symbol of the dragonfly and just let your eyes move with it, it begins to completely relax the brain. Try it slowly. See how you start to do. And it prepares the brain for writing, for problem solving. Really follow that flow. Slow, slow, slow.
It does help. Hayden, you try it.
Try it, Hayden. What does infinity mean?
I don't know if I can answer that. I'm really
Miss D, what's the infinity symbol?
It means it goes on forever.
It's boundless. So that means as you're doing this symbol, do it in the air with me, right? As you're doing it, you're basically reminding the brain, all the pathways, that you are boundless, that you can do anything if in the right mindset, that you can enter into this unknown and be completely filled with the potential of the moment. That's just with the ancient symbol. Interesting, right? And it's part of why I do have it as our dragonfly wings, because I do believe all of you are boundless and have the possibility to really do anything. And the other thing about the infinity symbol is there is a point in the middle, right? You have two sides and then you have that point of
It's
balance.
balance.
Yes!
Oh.
It's exactly balance. It's coming into balance, taking two sides, two opposite sides, and finding balance, which is a mathematical concept. Whatever is on one side of the equal sign is in balance with the other, right? Numerically.
You can't have an equation.
That's the balance point.
You can't have an equation without balance.
Yeah.
Basically what it's saying. I'm
Math
gonna do
is about
super
trying to
simple.
get to balance.
2 plus
So, to our dear girl who thinks she's bad at math and has a math learning disability, so maybe you'll never get to the biggest problem.
That wasn't me.
You'll never get to the most complex, but maybe you'll learn something about balance, boundlessness, infinity. What advice would you give to her, Miss D?
I would probably just say never give up trying. Somebody in my class today said, I'm bad at math, I don't know how to do this. And I said to them, actually, it's really not true. I don't think there's one, actually, I know for a fact, there's not one student in my class that's actually bad with math. None in the whole entire school.
Right.
So I think that it's just important not to give up and not to put that into your mind that you won't.
Yes, stop with the fixed mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you fix it and say, nah, not for me, that's it. Your mind's made up.
Mhm.
So, very true. Hayden and Maddie, love having you on. We're going to call two other students out who math kinds of comes easy for. Samantha and Benjamin to the table. And they present a little bit of a different problem. Ben on the other side. You can cross in front, Hayden. Thank you for being respectful. Samantha, Benjamin, two of our third graders. Now these are two students who are really good at mental math.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking to me about not liking to show their work, right? Why, Ben? What happened?
It's because it's just quicker when you do it mentally and then you go on to the next thing.
And it slows you down to have to show your work?
Yeah.
How about for you, Samantha?
It's easier for me to do work by mental math because then it's kind of confusing, like writing everything down and then I forget the number.
So writing it down actually confuses you a little bit. So Misty, why do you think it's important that they do show their work and not just do it mentally?
I think it's important. Well, I'm a firm believer in what you write down, you remember. So I think that's one of the reasons for me is if you continue to do it in your head, you're not going to get, not going to master it as much as you would if you were to write everything down. But also, I find that it's easier to find where you made a mistake when you write things down. When you write it all out, and then if you get the wrong answer, you can go back and see where you made that mistake in order to learn how to fix it.
It's really documentation, Sam and Benjamin. It's kind of putting down your process so then you can go back and review it. But it is frustrating when an answer can just come to you. Yes.
I just noticed that we're not using the talking stick.
Would you like to?
Yeah.
Do you have something to say about this mental math, writing it down or not writing it down?
Yeah. Usually when I do mental math, it helps me like focus better. Because usually on paper, then I draw, and then I lose track. But mental math, you can just solve your problem.
Well, and that's kind of the same thing that you were saying, Samantha, right?
Mhm.
Like, so do you find that same thing? Your mind gets more focused just doing it inside your head?
Yeah.
So when you say mental math, do you actually see yourself solving the problem or the answer just pops in your head?
I see myself solving the problem.
So you see it like you're writing it in your head?
Mhm.
Interesting. How about for you, Ben? Do you see it in your head or the answer just pops?
The answer just pops up.
So you're one of those guys who the answer is just there. It's the way your brain works really fast.
Mhm.
And to slow it down and write it down takes you off track.
Yeah.
Let's give it to Miss D. What do you think about that?
I do notice that about Benjamin actually, because every time I ask him, okay, how did you get to that answer? He says, I don't know, I just knew it. So that's what he means by it popping into his head. He just knows it automatically. But it's important to also explain. I do this a lot where I don't let them go up to the board because I want them to explain
Use
everything.
language.
Yeah, exactly. Use language, explain what they're thinking. I don't know. I guess it's better to, if you understand how you got somewhere, it's easier to build upon that in the future lessons. I guess that's in life too. If you know how you got somewhere, it's easier to get further.
Yes, I think that, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
If you write it down, you kind of have a picture of how you write it down in your head.
Yes, it goes from out of your head. And how about for you, Ben? Did that make sense? Why it would be important to write it down? What part made sense to you?
Nothing really.
You still don't get it, like
No.
why it might make sense to write it down. Because you feel like if I've got the answer, then why not?
Yeah.
But I will tell you this. You do tell me that you don't know how you got there because you just know.
Mhm.
But if I ask you further questions, you're really good at explaining how you did get there. So I think in the moment it's hard for you to think about how I got to the answer, but when you're pushed a little bit further, you can tell me how you got there. And I think that's really important that you can
This
explain.
thing just burnt.
It's all right.
Feather
We'll
fell.
fix it later.
So what'd you hear Miss D just say about you?
That usually when she asks further questions, and then I get better at explaining it.
That you actually do know,
Yeah.
even though it happens so quickly, if you reflect, you figure it out.
Yeah.
So, how about this? I think that's a really fair compromise. You may be able to get to it quickly. So we can get to our destination. You arrived, and you arrived at the right answer.
Mhm.
Once you get there, reflecting on how you got there is just important to do with anything. Why? Why might it be important to reflect once you arrived at somewhere in your life and ask yourself the question, how did I get here?
So if any other time you have to do that, then you can do it.
Yeah, you can kind of look back. And in math, things build in difficulty. So if you remember how you get to the simple answers, that's a step in getting to the more complicated ones. So reflection. We're talking about reflection, and then we're also talking about, for you, Sam, it sounds like writing it down takes you off track. So having it in your mind's eye keeps you on track. So what do you think about that? Why do you think it would still be important for you to write it down? What might you gain from that?
In higher math, I think you need to write it down, like, to actually get the answer, maybe.
Maybe.
Like, sometimes you need to write it down.
Just keep those small steps Think that's true, Miss D?
Yep.
So we were asking everybody, do you have a favorite number? No, maybe you'll discover one. Ben, do you have a favorite number?
Yeah,
What's your favorite number?
90 million.
90 million! Why 90 million?
Because I hope that that's how long I will get my leveled up to in one of my games.
So you want to get that high.
Mhm.
That's real life math. What level am I going to get to in my game?
Yeah.
What other ways do you guys enjoy real life math?
It's usually in easy worksheets. We probably.
But no, I'm not talking about worksheet. I'm talking about real life. Where do you use math in real life?
When you're buying something.
At the store, for sure. Banking, your own personal. Where do you use it? Do you bake? Do you cook? There's lots of measurements there. Yep.
In games, sometimes
A lot of
there
games.
there could be that you don't know what number of coins you have, and you want to buy something new, like if you want a new monster or something, or if you want a new.
Very
dinosaur.
much part of game playing. Do you guys, how would you say you feel about math?
It's fun.
Fun? How about you?
Fun.
Fun for you too. So both of you are having some fun with your math this year.
Fun.
Sounds great. Oh,
Especially Thursdays.
yes. Miss D, any final words about math?
I don't know. Just keep trying. Don't give up.
Definitely.
That's
We're so
important.
lucky to have her, right, Miss Mendez? So, thank you, my math heroes. Off you go, and we're coming into our final segment of the hour. You guys can go. Number. And we have Miss Lori in the think tank with me, thinking about math.
I love this. Oh my gosh. Can
Come
we
in.
start with the dry erase? I want to show you something.
So here we are. This is our segment where we start to
Hi.
apply everything we talk about to the whole philosophical basis of our lives, of Spark. How does math play into any of that? Well, I don't know. Miss Lori's the one who helps me get there.
we get there together. That's what we say.
Aiden, do your work.
Okay, so Kristen said her favorite number is 27.
Yes.
Veronica said 17 and 7. We had Hayden, 1, 2, 3. 90 million
Yes.
was Benjamin.
Yes.
Uh,
3 is really my most favorite number.
me too. And
3.
this is where I'm getting at, just to start. Every one of these numbers is divisible by 3.
Oh, no!
I knew they would be when you started asking.
Wow.
You have 17 and 7, okay, is 15, divisible by 3. It's 24, but I'm saying I just
Yes.
add these to
Yes.
know. 27 divisible by 3, 123, all evenly divisible by 3.
Wow. And we're 3.
3 is my favorite.
Why is 3 your favorite?
The Trinity.
Mhm.
And I think 6 is the number of completion. To me, every meaningful measurement happens in 3s. There's one's the loneliest number.
Yes. Yes.
2 is good, but 3 moves from even a coupling to a family, and from that to a community.
Yes.
But with 3 is when you start to see things grow. But I just thought, I heard the first person, and then I kind of was listening, and I said they're gonna all choose something divisible by 3. I
That
just
is
had it in my heart they would, and they did. I'm so
interesting.
pleased it worked out like that.
And for me too, I choose 3 because I do feel like it is a very spiritual number, and part of the spiritual connection for me is exactly what you were saying, the beginning of the circle of the group.
Right.
Now we're a group. Now, and the circle is part of the very deep
It's when you go from an
sacred
individual
geometry.
to a couple to a family to a community to a kingdom. to completion.
right?
Right.
To really putting it out and just asking the question. I think we all resonate with numbers in ways that we don't quite understand,
Right.
but that
right.
it's in our makeup because math, and I don't really know the science of this, but I do know that math is sort of almost the language of the whole universe of creation.
It absolutely is.
Right?
It
Like there is
absolutely is.
something in that patterning, in the sacredness of the geometry in all things.
And I think you have that book and you were teaching it, and I think it's going to be further introduced this year. It's the reliability we need life to be. It's knowing that you can look back and look forward and measure sustainability, which is big with the school, with the community, mathematically. It's knowing the difference between conjecture and truth, theory and proof. And I'm not a math genius, but I have complete confidence with time and patience. You or I or anybody could solve any math problem. It's the one thing where time will reward boundlessly, as you were saying.
Right, the infinity,
Yes.
but also this idea of measurement.
Yes.
The concrete measurement of is such a mathematical concept in looking at what we do, and it's part of the questioning of the kids when I was asking, like, why show your work?
Yes.
Why just do it mentally? Now, I have a feeling of what we're creating at Spark and what we're doing, but along with that, there also needs to be a measurement
Right.
of what we're doing.
And I think if I had to tell the kids, first off, why show your work, you can understand math. We can understand, I guess, we could take a formula and just plug numbers in our head and spit out an answer, and you could be right. That doesn't mean you understand it completely, because there's the theory. And I struggled with math when I was younger, but until I realized I'm not comfortable doing solving for something that I can't see and measure. And so they're giving you this formula and they're just saying plug in the number, and then just in faith know that's going to be the right answer if you haven't made an error in your simpler math.
Versus deeply
Right.
understanding.
And further, when you know the theory, you begin to know something. When you can apply it, you know it better. You truly know something, truly to its core and to your core, when you can teach it. If you can't show it, you could not teach it.
And that's the whole
That's
concept.
the ultimate level of
Yes.
having learned a subject matter or even a problem.
And that's what I came to understand with Maddie when it clicked for me about the hero's journey.
That's what made me think of it when I was
Right?
listening
Because
backstage. I borrowed it from
ultimately,
you.
it's not okay to just get the lesson as a hero.
Right.
You get the lesson, but you then have an obligation
Pass it on.
to pass it on, to teach it, to
That's
bring
right.
it back to the community, and to even have the aha, like I may have found a
It
different way
hit
to
me when
do
you were
it.
asking Benjamin about reflection. And I was thinking, why would Principal Marianne need to reflect on what she's done? Well, what are you teaching the kids if you don't teach them everything you have? Which is, last year we had a conversation, something to the effect of we give without reservation.
Mm-hmm.
So you pass on everything you have and say, here, and hope you do even more than what I've done.
And you know, one of the parents, there was a parent who said to us, and she said it critically. She said, well, this is our first year of really founding the Spark Way.
Right.
I'd say you're a work in progress.
Amen, sister. Thank you.
Right.
Aren't we? If you're not,
Mhm.
that's when you worry.
That's what I came to, was this sense of I want to be in a model that's ever evolving. And maybe that does go back to the infinity, the boundlessness, because once you come to an answer, this is the way. We've got it.
No.
We've got the answer. We got a formula. You start to lose the creativity that's
when you get an
inherited.
answer, and I think math for the part of the school that I think I represent, which is we'll say like the just people along the spectrum, different different neurologically, we'll say, thinking. When you come to an answer, to me, what you have is the premise for what's next. If that makes sense.
Yes, and
That's
that
all
is
that you have.
reflection.
That's
That
all
really
you
is.
have.
Yes.
And that's what math is. As soon as we got 1 + 1, and
that
and
I
that's
really
it.
want
That's
to
your next
hold
premise.
Because
and that's
there
what math
are-
is.
that. That's
um,
helpful. That's helpful. for me.
Philosophically, academically, that's all it is. So there is no greater compliment than that. When
I like
somebody
that.
says you've got it, you be leery
Well, because
and
then
question
you,
yourself,
You,
because then
you
close
lose
shop.
the creativity
That's
of
right.
what comes next, and that is
That's
actually helpful because the truth is there are some answers we come to. Like, yes, this works. But to leave it at this works, you lose the
You
possibility
become
of
unyielding.
right, okay, and
You were
And
saying the
what else?
infinity,
yes.
and I was thinking, if you came to just one, like a finality, because there is truth and there's math that has a solid answer that holds up to any kind of reason and scrutiny, which is a final truth, but it is your premise. But when you were saying the infinity, what I was picturing was this is the modern yin and yang.
And like
And it's more,
Maddie,
it's somehow more fluid because part of it is not caught over here and over here. It's just this perpetual.
and then like Maddie said,
Image.
there is this one point in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get to that point, you find balance. She said that's balance. And that she was very brilliant in that
That's
insight.
nice. Yes.
Because it's contradictory, the two sides. They're two very different points of view.
But they're needed for that nucleus of all logic.
Ugh, yeah.
When you that's literally how electrons.
Yes.
That's literally
Yes.
and they're around this nucleus and. We're building this as we go, in case you can't tell.
This is
But that's
very
the
good.
excitement of math. This is why I told you, like,
Yes.
you don't, and I'm so not a math genius, if you want to call it that. But I told you today, like, I was giddy. We don't know what we're going to talk about, but isn't math just so romantic,
And
poetic,
mysterious. And
yes,
to me,
yes,
math was okay. Like I could plug in the same way to the formulas, but what changed my life with math was I was talking to someone who was getting his PhD in math. And basically it's like a 14-page dissertation of a problem. And I said, like, what do they judge you on? Like how
Right.
is that a dissertation? That's
You
not
bet,
my
yeah.
sense. And he said to me, well, of course, they're judging me on, again, like the logic of the formula, but also the aesthetics of the way I am solving it. And I said, wait, math is aesthetic? And he said, yes, there are beautiful ways to solve math problems. Never occurred to me until that moment. And then it shifted everything. He said, listen, like in coding, you hear people say, oh, she writes beautiful code.
That's-
I'm like, what? Beautiful is a word you put with coding? And that began to really shift for me. There is a very creative process, and if you find the beautiful way to the answer, then I really believe that vibrationally that changes something,
right.
right? It's frequency.
And you're saying you didn't get math until that point, and I would say you did, because you're an author. And
Oh, true.
and
I
there
would
is
think of
something-
more words. It's
there
true.
is something in us when you say somebody is strong analytically. What we mean is they understand the nature of the world and life, and their outlook on it is distinct and beautiful. But they can also convey that. As an author, we can read a poem and we can say it's beautiful, but doesn't everybody have access to the same beautiful words? But we can
It's what you do with
right,
them.
we can distinguish between just a jumble of beautiful words, and that makes sense. I was telling you, rational. That's a
Yes.
math number, a math word. It's reasonable.
Mhm.
If it's not that, it's just words, and it's you could make words unbeautiful. You know,
Well, what just occurred
it has
to
to
me,
hold to reason to be good
Yes.
writing.
and also, I see my writing as a very different process than, let's say, solving math. But my writing, my book is called Sacred Weave,
Right.
Sacred Weave of Mothering, because what I'm doing is weaving stories, and the weave is mathematical.
That is how math is described is the weaving
and
of
that
and
just
that is philosophy. It's
connected for me.
the weaving of different ideas, and hopefully getting bigger and bigger, but still held together by this common thread. If it doesn't contribute to that, it falls away, or it makes it weaker.
Yes.
So I mean, if we're going with just that visual of it, but it is math.
And
We've
our-
been doing all along, even if we don't call it that.
And our littlest kids at school, I see them very naturally doing math. So we have in the Reggio room, which is so much nature art, they create these mandalas. It is
Oh my
a
God.
difficult process to do nature mandalas.
I saw when we had the Reggio teacher out one day, and you had stepped in, and we're doing the mandalas with them with nature. And didn't they seek balance without you demanding it?
They found
They're
the
already
way.
made that way.
Right. It's
Right.
it's in us.
Yeah,
It's in us.
it's intrinsic that we have this desire for balance, which is Maddie had said,
Mm.
you know something's right because it balances.
Yes.
With math. So they are doing math.
Right,
They
the
just
two
don't
sides.
have, we just have to teach them the verbiage to go with it along the way. But you're already feeding math. In the same way you hear people say, oh, I don't want to teach my kids philosophy, religion, they're too young. They don't know the scientific makeup of milk, but a mom's going to give them milk.
And they
These kids don't have to
intuit.
know math
Yes.
for us to say, make a mandala. And they will know, they're doing the math.
and
The
this,
words will come later.
like these beautiful puzzles, like here's
Yeah,
the
I
circle
love
puzzle,
those.
like they have the shapes, again, the spiral, which is such the ancient shape,
Right.
in creating that and finding their way through that, it's very intrinsic. And just this morning, one of our 4-year-olds came in with a book, I think it's called Say Zap. And it's this book of these little shapes, and the shapes have sound, but it's all about patterning, interacting with the book. And I'm thinking, this is math in a book. And I feel like our younger children, the same way that we read stories to them about other things, this idea of mathematical patterns and reading stories and just having math as such a part of the air that they breathe, because it is
It should
everywhere, that I don't think we'll have that same sense of anxiety around.
They shouldn't. They should be comfortable with what's most right. And then I always go back to ethics and stuff, and they should be comfortable with what's good. And balance is good, always. And they should be born with that. We stray away from it, and then a lot of times it's just removing stuff and trying to get back to what was there before we went and
Yes, the
piled
recovery.
stuff up over it. but they should be okay with it because that is the language that we're all born with, no matter what part of the world you're born in, what class you're born into. We all do have that. You don't need the laws of math. Give me a second while I frame this. The laws of math don't change based on your religion, based on
right.
your political view.
Right. Oh my gosh, it's very unifying.
It is. It
It's
is.
equal-
and you know
equalizing.
how I like stuff that I want it to be right is right.
Yes, yes.
And that's why math is so solid and it has the potential to be so binding because it's unmovable, as all truth is. Nothing changes its essence.
Very simply so.
Two
right.
opposing religions will both find the same solution, and that's where the secret to something is. We're just not probably asking the right questions yet,
Well, and
but we're starting to.
the other problem I think with math for kids is this idea of right answer. And so many great mathematical and scientific discoveries came from doing it wrong, like getting the wrong answer and going back and really seeing what went wrong here and what is this now showing me. So again, this very fixed mindset
Right.
of it's not okay to get a wrong answer. It's fine to get the wrong answer. It's not okay not to reflect on the wrong answer.
And as an aside, if we don't make a good case for showing your work, a lot of math teachers are going to give you partial credit. If they're
Right.
like, your thinking was right, it was just, that's why you would want to document what you were thinking, because that is a lot harder to get wrong, a thought process, than a final answer.
Yes.
Thought process being right. I mean, isn't that how life is for all of us? Right thinking, kind of a wrong result, sorry. A lot of that, I mean, at any age, at any level.
Oh, that's good to actually repeat, I think. Truly.
You repeated that?
No, I think that's
I did.
really important because it shows intention and it shows the pathway of the thought.
Yes.
So the thought could have been right completely, and then you just took a left turn somewhere, and it led you to this dark
But
alley.
if we all got a little credit, it would make
Like,
it would
oh,
make
you
the
were
wrong
right there.
thing
You
feel-
were right there.
Doesn't it make us all a little more forgivable
Yes.
in
And I
life?
think-
And don't we all deserve that and need that to have the courage to grow and not
Well-
just give up and walk away because we were brutalized?
Yeah. No.
It was all or none, the
and
final answer.
Truly, and if we think about forgiveness, I think the only way for forgiveness to really happen is to understand the process of the other that led them to that point of hurt, of wrongdoing, and that's what we're talking about. Like,
Right.
what led you here?
Or they could just show their work so they don't have to listen to this whole thing. This
Show
is the
your
long
work.
way.
Show your work.
But how
if you're
math
doing
leads to this isn't, we don't know what we're gonna talk about when we sit down.
no.
This isn't what I pictured. I'm sure it's not what you pictured, but it's just as it should be. And
Because
that's how math ends
everything
up, right?
connects. I feel like
Yes.
anything that we are teaching our children as the people who are stepping back and reflecting, we have to really be thoughtful and clear about the true meaning of it all and the practice, because like you said, even though they might not be getting it now, there is something in this process that will help them to have an inspired life.
That's right.
Hayden, who has so much potential, he's going to need good guidance in his life.
Yes.
He said it right there in the chair. I will let it go if someone isn't there to guide me.
At my age, ages beyond Hayden's age, I totally get it. I do my best work when I have what I call a shadow with me. Me and you work well together we keep each other honest.
Right.
And
For sure.
we're good shadows to each other, and that's what he's saying. I need somebody to keep me honest as I'm doing this. Not that he would be dishonest, but in the sense,
I'm rushing. I'm not giving it my best.
and also math, until you can show the work and you could teach it as the highest form of learning, it has that feeling of being kind of a balancing act. And so you just have somebody with you as you're balancing. It's a whole lot. It feels so much better. It's so uncomfortable. We've both had to balance on our own. I hate it.
Well, because
And I don't say that word hardly ever, but that's the worst feeling. That is the feeling of angst.
Yes.
And no child should ever feel that way.
And they need
Ever.
to know what it is that is going to help them find that. Like
Right.
Maddie saying, I need it soundproof.
That's
I
right.
cannot have sound coming in. It's just, it throws me off. And again, this is really, and it's part of why we talk, because it is constantly working with the relevance and it's not even deeper meaning, it's universal meaning and connection to I think creating, I keep going back to that, like an inspired life.
That's right. It's a
Right?
big deal. Math is a big deal.
It's beautiful.
It's not.
It is. It's a mystery. A lot of it is a mystery to me, but mystery holds reverence.
Yes.
And I have a lot of reverence for it. And Pi Day is coming up, March 14th.
I
Not
never
too
claimed to be a
far.
math person. I didn't know that, but I'll eat. I was like, I will
I
eat a
love
pie on Pi
pie.
Day if that's a choice.
Now, I'll end with this thought. Someone told me that the circle, right, which is such a symbol, sacred symbol, in the Sufi tradition, the circles are drawn with one tiny point of opening.
This is
at the
Navajo
end.
also,
Is that also?
and Aztec, many Indian tribes. But go ahead.
And so
Yes.
I, again, was like, how is that a circle if it's not connected?
It's an infinity.
And it is that moment, that briefest moment of pause, that then just allows it to keep going.
So you have your.
Yep.
And that's your. It's the story's not finished.
Yes.
That's what it
Yes.
means. And the next
Yes.
potter, if that's what they're doing, or artist or whatever, they begin where somebody has left off.
So maybe that's with the parent who says you're a work in progress, the response is the story is not finished.
And that's our personhood. We won't know until our final day what our personhood totaled. That's what I love about the mess ups, the ton of erasers you need for math for life, because
The pink erasers.
today could go horrible, but today's not my personhood. Everything I've done up until now is not. The last day, it'll be the total, the adding up of everything, and not adding as
Like keeping count.
yeah, not a
good
tally,
enough. Yes.
but it'll be who I was along this continuum. And maybe without it being closed, maybe it'll be who I am, and somebody built upon will complete my personhood.
Yes. And
As
so
it should be.
yes, and that's where so special for us to be working with children at this time in this space and really helping them to connect to sort of that inner place of becoming.
Right.
Oh, beautiful. And so we go. Miss Lori and me, we close the show today thinking about math. Enjoy
math.
all the math around you. I've really come to love and appreciate the beauty of math. So all you math scholars out there, God bless you.
Yes.
And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Miss Lori.